Humans are amazingly adaptable. Physically, we are capable of living anywhere and doing almost anything. But we still underestimate the power of our minds. Natural Mystery looks at our secret lives and explores the extraordinary control of mind over matter. Rosa Hervaso is about to have a painful operation involving surgery on her varicose veins, but she's not going to be given any anesthetic. She is following the advice of her surgeon in southern Spain. Dr. Escudero asks a lot of his patients. He gives them complete responsibility for their own well-being and assures each that as long as they believe they will feel no pain, then even as his scalpel slices away at their flesh, they feel no pain.
Cuéntanos algo. Es importante.
Rosa is not hypnotized. She chats away with the theater staff while her veins are being exposed, secure in the hands of a man who insists that the secret of his technique is very simple, just positive thinking. Ángel Escudero works in Valencia, where he was trained as a conventional surgeon. But he was so impressed by several early examples of apparent self-healing that he set up his own clinic to teach what he describes as noisy therapy, which means healing by thinking. It is here that he teaches all patients how to use his special therapy. The first step is a dress rehearsal, in which they learn how to control the stress of being in the theater. And as one of the first signs of anxiety is a dry mouth, Dr. Escudero insists that they always have a good supply of saliva. If the mouth is moist, he believes, the body can be persuaded that it is not afraid and can act accordingly. The second step is to teach them how to control pain. He persuades Rosa that her right arm is slowly losing its feeling, then he sticks a needle right through it. Amazingly, she feels nothing. She removes the needle herself and tries piercing her own arm. And she succeeds, apparently without discomfort. Escudero suggests that she will enjoy the same protection during her entire operation.
You don't have to repeat this. Just keep in your mind all the time what I'm telling you. All my body, from my head to my toes, is numb.
That is the full extent of her preparation for surgery. The following day, Rosa has her legs sliced open in the theater, without anesthesia. And apparently, without pain. Rosa is just one of many patients all over the world, now being given a dramatic new choice. Fire inflames us, producing some of the most painful of all injuries, whose victims often die not from their burns, but from shock. But even those damaged beyond conventional medical care respond remarkably well to simple suggestion. At the medical school in New Orleans, they found that hypnosis provides a vital form of first aid in the emergency treatment of severe burns. Patients who are hypnotized immediately suffer less pain, have fewer post-operative infections, and heal faster than those who are simply anesthetized.
The person who's been in an explosion or is hurting and is injured is already in a trance equivalent state. They're completely focused, they're looking for help, and it's, I just, you know, I say, I'm Dr. Ewan, I can help you where you do what I say.
Dr. Ewan finds that if he can get to a patient within 2 hours of a burn, they are far more suggestible. And if he can convince them that what they are experiencing is not hot and painful, but cool and comfortable, then their wounds are far less inflamed and the resulting damage much less severe.
If the patient agrees he will do what I say without testing it through his logical thinking processes, that's the equivalent of a hypnotic induction.
And that is a condition Dr. Ewan has used to huge advantage in some of his most successful treatments of severely burned patients. Patients such as Sammy Locicero. Sammy is a Vietnam War veteran, newly married and working as an electrician. He set out one day from his suburban home in New Orleans to repair a faulty transformer in a factory outside the city. That job changed the entire course of his life. What he found there was a device that wasn't working. No voltage passed through it. So he sidled carefully beneath to take a closer look and discovered that the problem was a simple one. But that was when he got careless. He arched his back to come out and touched the terminals.
It hit me in the back of the head, it arced to me, and it put my face against the steel plate, and it just kept arcing. I couldn't get off.
And his colleagues couldn't help him. 13,000 volts were flowing through his body, and one touch would have drawn them into the circuit as well. Instead, he had to wait while they ran several hundred yards to find a rope that they could put over his feet to pull him free. And then he passed out. He recovered briefly on the way to the hospital to learn that he was severely burned and almost unrecognizable.
I had a T-shirt on, it burned off. I had a chain with a St. Christopher medal. It burned, completely melted.
He could see very little, but hear everything people in the ambulance were saying, including how terrible he smelled and how certain he was to die. Then Sammy passed out again and had his first lucky break. The nearest hospital was at the New Orleans Medical School, where he was received by one of the world's leading specialists in the emergency treatment of severe burns.
Sammy was very, very badly injured and very badly burned. And he had 60% of his body burned. And really, well, he looked cooked.
And that was also when Dabney Ewan began his process of suggestion, inserting himself into Sammy's spontaneous pain-induced trance, establishing rapport, and teaching him step by step how to control his pain. That early hypnotic first aid helped inhibit shock and tissue damage. It turned potentially lethal third-degree burns into treatable second-degree injuries. It also saved Sammy from the scarring and disfigurement such wounds would certainly have produced.
He taught me to let my subconscious mind control my body. He said, "You're gonna be okay, you're gonna make it. You got the strength. You can do it." That's what he used to say. You can do it. Your mind can do miracles.
The answer, perhaps, is that all pain is in the brain. The body may be wounded, but the head hurts. And somewhere between the two, suggestion and hypnosis seem to set up a barrier to such sensation.
I now want you to imagine that you are getting out of the boat and are walking on a small sand beach. You lie down and just start playing.
At Charing Cross Hospital in London, Dr. John Williams and his assistants are exploring the possibility that we often practice self-hypnosis, protecting ourselves from some kinds of pain.
What we're actually trying to show is whether hypnosis can actually influence the perception of pain. A lot of people may be in a lot of pain, and if we can actually use their own ability to alter the perception of pain, then that can be beneficial to them in their everyday lives.
The patient in this experiment is receiving a series of electric pulses to one finger. Some are strong enough to be painful. Her task is to press a button whenever it hurts, and to keep on doing this as she listens to an hypnotic suggestion that she is losing sensation in that hand. Her body continues to be stimulated in a painful way, but her mind is being told that it doesn't hurt, and after a while, it doesn't. She stops pressing the pain button. Is she simply ignoring the pain, or does hypnosis actually stop painful signals from reaching the brain at all? Her quiet brainwave pattern suggests the latter, but many scientists still have doubts about hypnosis.
What science is always looking for is an explanation. And because it's so difficult to come up with objective data to prove that hypnosis is the cause, then that is, I would argue, the main reason why it hasn't been used.
The connection between pain and suggestion may finally have been revealed at the University of Montreal in Canada. Here they seem to have found hard evidence for the existence of hypnosis.
Just to make sure that your head will stay still during this.
Some scientists suspect that patients who seem to be hypnotized are just pretending, or just doing what he expects them to do. But the new evidence comes from a positron emission tomography device, better known as a PET scanner. This is a sort of subatomic X-ray that can detect blood flow in a subject and show which parts of the brain are working hardest at any particular moment. The scanner works best with a radioactive tracer. So each subject is fitted with an intravenous line that feeds such a marker directly into their bloodstream.
Throughout the scan. So close your eyes. And I just want you to...
Dr. Rainville is not a hypnotist. All he does is to read from a prepared script that provides a gentle suggestion to help subjects relax.
At a certain moment, however, your eyes will be so tired, so heavy, that you won't be able to keep them open any longer. And it will close. It will simply close.
And as he speaks, the device produces a three-dimensional picture of her brain.
The use of the PET scanner allows us to see what physiological change occur in the brain after we induce or during the induction of hypnosis.
As a measure of the depth of her hypnosis, Dr. Rainville puts the subject's hand into water so hot it would normally be too painful to touch, and he watches to see what response this produces in the brain scan.
Okay, so this is the anatomical image of the brain of the subjects. And when we induced hypnosis, what we found was large regions of activation in the occipital lobe.
The pictures on the left, taken before hypnosis, show no activity whatsoever. The pictures on the right show that pain is being perceived mainly in a small area of the brain, here colored in red. This stops being stimulated as the patient accepts the hypnotic suggestion that she feels no pain.
4, 3, 2.
Hypnosis is not just pretense. Something in the brain actually changes under its influence.
There is a real physiological change during hypnosis, and our data, I think, strongly support the use of hypnosis to relieve pain.
It becomes clear that pain is in the brain, not the body, and it can be dealt with by the mind alone. It is also plain that hypnosis makes an effective connection between our mind and our body, and this bridge gives us the chance to do extraordinary things.
Everyone can be hypnotized, but some people can't be hypnotized easily. When people see people up on the stage, they think to themselves, well, that couldn't be me. I can't be made to bark like a dog or squawk like a chicken. They can, but maybe not as easily as those people on stage. Everybody can be hypnotized. It's only a question of what techniques are necessary for that to occur.
Robert Farrago believes hypnosis works because right from the moment of birth, the learning centers in our brains are open to suggestions from other people.
Okay, close your eyes and imagine that your right hand is a very powerful magnet and your left hand is a piece of metal. My job as a hypnotist is to establish dominance over my clients, over my subjects, and to get them to do what I tell them to do. Now, if they are properly hypnotized, I can take control of their reactive mind, their subconscious, so that they cannot consciously resist what I tell them to do. So if they're hypnotized and I say, every time I look at my watch, you look at yours, then they'll do it, even if they don't want to. Even if they think it's stupid and silly, then they will do it. And in the same sense, I can say every time the phone rings, you don't pick up a cigarette. You stay calm and relaxed. So I get control over their mind and I can program them as they want to be programmed.
With a series of rhythmic and repetitive instructions, he appeals to the unconscious part of a patient's brain. She doesn't go to sleep. She doesn't lose consciousness, but does become open to his suggestion that she can take control over her own problems.
A lot of times it's possible to go into a hypnotic state without even knowing it. And people will recognize these states of minds. For example, driving down the motorway, you miss your exit. What happened? Or you suddenly arrive 50 miles and you have no idea how you got there. Okay, right, you ready for this test? Mm-hmm. Okay, look at my finger here and sleep. Okay, now, stiff and rigid like a steel bar. Your whole body stiff and rigid like a steel bar, right from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Make a tight fist here, tight fist there. Let your arms come down, stiff and rigid like a steel bar. That's good, okay?
Many hypnotists win the trust of their patients by getting them to do things like this that seem to be impossible, but are actually easier than they look.
Takes you into deeper hypnosis. Down, deeper.
Most people have never tried to do this and are inclined to believe that someone who does can only do so because she is hypnotized.
So you're going to come all the way back.
That may not be true, but the importance of such stagey demonstrations is that they put subjects into a frame of mind which predisposes them to accept the next suggestion from the hypnotist, which may be the one that is crucial to their therapy.
Keep your body stiff. Stiff, 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 stiff. All the way in your back as well. Stiff. That's great. And just relax and keep it stiff, just like that. Hypnosis has always been there, will always be there. It's just that Western medicine has gone down a dead-end road. They've realized that now, and they're coming back to the hardcore reprogramming of the subconscious mind, the actual hypnosis.
In Valencia, Dr. Escudero says he is not a hypnotist, but he does use a similar technique to gain the confidence of his patients. In the training session with Rosa, he helps her to exercise self-control by suggesting that her arm is becoming numb, and then proves that it must be numb because she feels no pain. This sort of positive reinforcement may not be hypnotism, but it is a very good way of encouraging people to do what they believe to be impossible to do.
Noise therapy has nothing at all to do with hypnosis. Of course, our patients are using the brain, but in a conscious way and with full knowledge of how it works. Nobody manipulates them. They are the ones who intelligently use the information.
Escudero's enthusiasm and conviction is infectious. He carries his patients and his family along with him. His daughter, Maria Teresa, works as his scrub nurse, and she believes very strongly in her father's approach.
I decided to work with my father, first of all, because I was always keen on his profession. I have watched him operate since I was 7 years old. I used to come into the operating theatre. I saw what he was doing, and I found it very exciting, especially the way he does it, because I was trained in a completely traditional way.
She joins Escudero and their patient in the second part of her operation, the exposure of a vein in her groin with a faulty valve. Rosa still seems totally unconcerned. This is not a difficult surgical procedure.
Well, I noticed I was quite relaxed. It was quite a gentle feeling. Actually, it was quite pleasant.
But the real beauty of Dr. Escudero's procedure is that they also benefit from more rapid healing, from complete freedom from antibiotics or anesthetics, and a lower risk of any complications.
The more natural human abilities are used, the less chemical help the patient will need. The less chemicals used, the better for the patient and the better for the medical team.
Y mejor para el equipo médico.
Dr. Escudero attributes his surgical success to positive thinking. He believes that anything can be accomplished with the right mental approach, and he carries this proactive attitude over into all other aspects of his life. He has composed over 800 piano pieces and 2 entire symphonies, all without any formal musical training. Escudero says, thought conducts the whole of life's orchestra. And if you can avoid pain by thinking, then why not fear and disease? He sees no reason why anyone should not be successful at almost anything, and has moved on now from music to art, producing bold engravings on marble with a dentist's drill. At work or play, Escudero's life is a fine example of the power of the mind over all obstacles. In China, warrior monks of the Shaolin tradition show similar application, growing strong through meditation, becoming able to endure almost anything. They find inner peace through outer ordeal, subduing the self, but ending up with a degree of self-control that is awesome. The key to such development is always meditation. Control of the mind leads to control of the body, and to an array of almost superhuman feats of strength, endurance, and agility. Each such performance is designed not for show, but to demonstrate how it is possible, through the exercise of the mind, to accomplish the apparently impossible. These skills were practiced first as a part of Buddhist worship in the Yellow Mountains of China, where concentrated meditation was used to awaken the true nature inside everyone. But it isn't necessary now to go all the way to China to achieve such mastery. In New York, a graduate of the City University practices Kung Fu Wushu, another of the martial arts dedicated to spiritual enlightenment. Robert Thomas may be the only vice president of a Wall Street bank who can also break paving stones with his head.
It allows you to open up your mind. It allows you to concentrate. There's a lot of concentration that needs to take effect in order for you to demonstrate this power. The meditation helps you to clear your mind and then pull yourself together by separating all of the other influences that might be out there and the other things that you may be thinking about. Through meditation, you can ignore those things and develop the concentration of power that you need to perform the discipline techniques.
The disciplines themselves came direct from China through the family of Grandmaster Lun Li.
The meditation is focus, everything together. So very important. If you're not focused, you cannot accomplish the thing. It's testing how good the human body can build to.
To perform the nail bed, basically you have to practice meditation. You have to think about your concentration. To perform the feat itself, initially you do a set of breathing exercises. You do breathing. What I did to do the nail bed was Dantian breathing, that's what it's called. Basically, it helps you prepare your mind and put yourself in a specific state. Once you do that, you start concentrating on what it is that you're going to do, and then your mind slips into a meditation that allows you to take the weight and the force of the nails that are sticking into you.
We know that stress increases pain, So it's not unreasonable to suggest that a lack of anxiety can help to eliminate pain and prepare those involved for such ordeals. It has taken Robert Thomas, at the bottom of this uncomfortable pyramid, 5 years to prepare for this ordeal, but he counts this time well spent on the road to enlightenment. Most people today are too impatient to spend years learning difficult disciplines. We want results. We want them now. So we look for less demanding ways in which we can alter consciousness and transcend our everyday lives. There are such quick fixes. Some are proving to be very effective ways for taking conscious control of our own bodies. The average human breathes 15 times each minute. 6 million lungfuls in a lifetime. We do it most of the time without thinking. Sensors in our bodies monitor the pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide and trigger a new breath roughly every 4 seconds. Our brains demand it, devouring a quarter of all the oxygen we inhale. Underwater, most people can hold their breaths for only a minute. After 2 minutes, they drown. But these free divers break the rules. They can remain submerged for up to 5 minutes. How is this possible? The first problem is pressure. This doubles with every 10 meters of depth and has to be equalized by forcing air into the cavity of the middle ear. At 20 meters, all internal organs are sucked up into the rib cage, compressed into a quarter of their normal space. The heart slows, and physiology changes as the body battles for use of the remaining oxygen. What the divers have to do is to learn how to cope. They have to use their minds to help their bodies adapt. They have to take control, ignore the warning signals, and suppress the reflex to gasp for breath. This isn't easy. It takes training to bypass the unconscious instruction, and each diver has to find his own way of getting around the body's natural programming.
I use phrases like, I am at peace, or one that works particularly well for me is I am dissolving. So you imagine yourself dissolving into the sea, into the water, so that you're becoming like one with the water. Other people I know try and imagine that they're a fish, would you believe? And this seems to work for them. You know, different people have different techniques. But I guess fundamentally it's about shifting your mind away from holding your breath and on to something else.
This process of distraction is known as visualization. It brings normally unconscious processes, such as the need to breathe, under conscious control. This overrides the automatic mechanisms that govern most of our basic physiology and gives us the power and the responsibility of choice. Holding your breath 60 times longer than usual requires a change in priority and a change in pace. You have to relax.
The main way to do it is reduce your heart rate and reduce all unnecessary movement or tensing of muscles. So basically, the more relaxed you are, the longer you can hold your breath for.
Relaxation also allows the body to make its own choices, concentrating the available oxygen in the heart and in the brain.
He's going to shut down the blood supply to his skin, to his kidneys, to his gut, to his liver, all the places that don't matter right now, and he's going to keep his blood supply with its oxygen, because that's what we're talking about, just for his heart and his brain. Because what he wants to survive the next 5 minutes is his heart and his brain. The rest doesn't matter.
Dr. Maurice Cross is interested in the physiological changes that take place in experienced free divers, and he has found that even while holding their breath out of the water, they can manage with less oxygen than most other people.
Sooner or later, he's going to use up the oxygen which is trapped in his lungs. And when that happens, you see the number on the screen representing the saturation start to fall from 100, 98, 95, 90, and it will drop down. And typically, in these men, I've found that they can drop it to levels of about 50, which means that his blood has half the amount of oxygen in it than it normally has.
Freedivers have remarkable control. This takes training, both physical and mental, and something like it is now beginning to help teach each of us to use our minds to control processes in our bodies that are otherwise automatic. The man undergoing armchair medical treatment is a 38-year-old with a family history of heart problems. What he needs is a new drug-free way of controlling his own high blood pressure.
It's kind of a silent killer. Whatever mechanisms control blood pressure are not inherent in my family. And at a certain age, everybody gets high blood pressure. So that's the real reason that I wanted biofeedback.
Biofeedback is a surprisingly simple technique. All it involves is an instrument that shows you what is going on inside your body.
This is showing your muscle tension.
In Jim's case, he sees a display of his own skin temperature and soon learns that he can raise or lower this at will. And because skin temperature depends on blood flow, he finds this talent also gives him control over his blood pressure.
After a few weeks of doing it, it changed my life because many things that you think are out of control really are within your means of controlling.
Which is a large...
Biofeedback is not limited just to heart problems. It can also provide relief to those who suffer from chronic migraine.
Want to flee the situation?
Boy, when I was growing up my whole life, I suffered, even as a child, from migraines, with the kind that would put me in the hospital, and they couldn't give you anything. They couldn't do anything for you. So biofeedback for me is the perfect choice because it's something that I can take control of, especially when I'm in a really, really high level of pain.
Shauna's treatment is similar to Jim's, but involves feedback about her muscle tension. She not only sees a graphic display of her stress, but hears a tone that rises and falls with the level of her anxiety.
Is your hand temperature. The reason why we have a tone in biofeedback is so that the person can hear changes, very subtle changes in hand temperature or muscle tension. And by hearing that moment to moment, they're able to guide themselves to do more of the same.
Shauna concentrates first on her shoulder muscles, where tension is most obvious. She works on lowering the tone she hears by deliberately relaxing these muscles, teaching her body to recognize its own state and to change it.
You don't feel anything when you're hooked up. It's not like there's any kind of, electrical current that you're feeling, anything like that. What you're concentrated on your body and you're concentrated on your breath.
The power of the body to heal itself is extraordinary. And with a little help from the mind, it may even provide a cure for cancer. Garrett Porter was just 9 years old when he was first diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. He was given a short time to live and released to the care of clinical psychologist Patricia Norris. Now, 20 years later, thanks to her imagination and his courage, Garrett is still alive.
Garrett was the first cancer patient that I ever worked with. I've been wanting to do it for several years, in fact, since 1972, when I saw some other spectacularly effective work with cancer patients.
When I was diagnosed, it was like, well, what is a brain tumor? And when my father told me it could kill me, that's when my whole world changed. I was forced to grow up in a hurry.
He was thrown in at the deep end, and after a year of intensive radiation and chemical therapy produced no results, he was sent home to die.
My parents could see that I was physically deteriorating, and they had pondered about going out and buying the casket, even. And my mother screamed at me, "Garrett, if you don't do something, you're going to die."
What he did was to work with Pat Norris on a process of visualization. For him, this meant personalizing his cancer, giving it an evil identity, and mobilizing his white blood cells as forces for good, battling with the enemy on his behalf. For Garrett, this fantasy was easy. He created his own private space war. In this, he was the heroic wing commander, leading his squadron in action night after night against the stronghold of the alien invader in his brain.
Star Wars had just come out, and I was very much into that.
Garrett visualized and drew voracious little white blood corpuscles gobbling away at his tumor, mirroring the microscopic view of his real-life war against disease.
It was very real to me, and it became much more than a game. It became a, an epic struggle between good and evil. And every night I would see that damn tumor destroyed.
Every day for 6 months, Garrett fought his private war, until one night there was nothing to fight. The enemy seemed to have disappeared.
And all of a sudden, we come out of hyperspace and there's no tumor there.
He checked again, this time with more starships, but still no sign. So the next day he went into hospital for a CAT scan, and they waited with some anxiety for the results.
Doctor goes, "Well, there's no concussion and the tumor's gone." Mom jumps out of that chair. The tumor's gone? Scares the doctor half to death, and kind of fades back and says, "Well, yeah, the tumor's gone. And by the way, did you have it surgically removed?" And of course, there was no surgery, and the only thing that was left was a little white spot of calcification that I had actually seen in my visualization. That's cool.
Garrett is now 29 years old and a scanner for the Civil Air Patrol in Kansas, a fitting sequel to his own starship fantasy. Now he searches for downed aircraft and helps to rescue flyers who are lost or injured.
When I was a child, I was fighting for my own life. This time I'm fighting for everybody else's. And I think that's one thing that I came out of the whole experience with cancer with, is that lives are important. I want to save lives. I want to be out there. I want to help as much as I can.
Garrett's visualization of white blood cells as starships helped him to fight back against his brain tumor. Now that same technique is being used in a computer game to assist children like 6-year-old Julie to control her own brainwaves. The jet engines are linked to an EEG, and they fire only when her brain is producing a particular frequency. Normally, we don't know anything about this. The brain operates at anything from 1 to 22 cycles per second, depending on what we are doing at the time. But for people with neurological problems, it can be useful to produce more of the restful middle frequencies. Julie is using this technique, called neurofeedback, to help her brain relax. The spaceship to which she is connected only fires its engines when her brainwaves lie between 8 and 12 cycles per second. When she strays outside this range, the game stops. The only way to get it going again is to wait until her brain settles on the right frequency once more. And each time she is made aware of this connection, it becomes easier to make it happen again. For Julie, this is still a game. But by playing it, she exercises her mind in a manner that changes the whole way her brain works. At Manchester University in England, they've discovered that just thinking about exercising could help to keep us fit.
Right, Andy, if you want to put the...
Sports psychologist Dave Smith talks an athlete through an imaginary run while monitoring his heartbeat.
Your 200 metres, so it's very, very important that you give an absolute maximum effort here. I want you to run as fast as you possibly can. On your marks, get set, go!
For an athlete conditioned to respond to starting orders, the words alone are sufficient to start adrenaline flowing and to persuade the body that an effort will soon be required. Instantly, the heart rate climbs. But after about 15 seconds, the brain realizes that the race is not real and turns off most of the machinery. But enough excitement still seeps through from the brain to the body to raise the athlete's heart rate by a total of about 20 beats per minute, even though he has never moved a muscle. Mental preparation is obviously a vital part of physical fitness, but Dave Smith goes even further. He believes that muscle tone can be improved by thought alone, and to prove this, has set up an experiment involving the human body's least used muscle, the one that moves our little finger. One group of subjects, exercising twice a week, tries to strengthen that muscle alone by pressing the little finger repeatedly against the side of a metal tube. The other group are encouraged, while using the same apparatus, to do nothing but think about performing the same finger exercise.
Imagining performing the strength training does promote significant strength gains. The results aren't actually as good as actually performing the task, but they are significant. Specifically, in our last study, we found that individuals who actually did the strength training improved their strength by about 30%, and individuals who imagined performing it improved by about 16%.
So, could this mean the end of exercise? Could we become fit just by thinking about it?
The results clearly aren't as good as actually going out and performing exercise. However, what they do mean is that, for example, when people are unable to exercise due to illness or injury, they may obtain some of the benefits from imagining performing the exercise.
If the mind can give the body a virtual workout that is nevertheless half as good as the real thing, what else is possible? At Georgetown University in Washington, Candace Pert believes that thought on its own can also have a direct effect on the immune system. She has discovered chemical connections between the mind and the body, and these prove that it is impossible to have a thought of any kind that doesn't change you physically.
Every time we have a thought, a mood shift, a feeling, it's not that it's just happening up above your head in your brain. It's really happening simultaneously all over what I've actually called your body-mind. Chemicals are released, and these little molecules are diffusing all over the body through the bloodstream, binding to receptors, thus having the potential to change everything from a rate of digestion to the size of a tumor.
Professor Pert believes that her chemicals are what make it possible for someone like Garrett Porter to open up a channel between his mind and his body and to think his tumor away.
Consciousness can actually create the physical molecules, can change the physical molecules. This is very radical. This is very big. This is as big as realizing that the Earth revolves around the sun.
It seems there is no real division between the mind and the body. Both work together as part of the human whole, and changes in one influence the other. Nothing is all in the mind or just physical. We seem to be extraordinary mixtures of mind and matter, able almost to use one to create the other. Each one of us certainly has the power, and science has now given us the means to take personal responsibility for our own well-being. We can control our own pain, look after our own fitness, and take drug-free action against infection. In Dr. Escudero's surgery, Rosa has been on the operating table for 20 minutes. And if her operation is like all the others here, she should suffer from no post-operative complications. Rosa seems none the worse for her experience, and very happy to leave the theatre, not on a trolley, but on her own 2 feet. She also leaves the hospital immediately and strolls home with her husband as though nothing has happened. Nothing, that is, except another extraordinary natural mystery.